Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Explode Your Expert Business Show. I'm here with my good friend Keith Blakemore-Noble. How you doing, Keith?
I'm fabulous as always, Simone. Lovely to catch you again.
Fantastic. You always look super smart and dapper everywhere you go. I'll always love your style, man. So it has been a while. I mean, you've been a guest on the show about a year ago. And also as well, we've been knowing each other now for, was it 5 years, 6 years, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
So it's great to reconnect and to talk about something that affects a lot of entrepreneurs, whether they like to admit it or not. And we're talking about the topics of fears. So before we get into fears, and in particular stage fright and how to overcome that, what got you to this point? What got you so passionate about helping other entrepreneurs overcoming their fears?
Great question. I think really it boils down to the fact that it's a journey that I've had to go through myself. I know what it's like to be terrified of these things, and I know the sheer relief you get in overcoming it, and the huge opportunities that open up to do the things you want to love doing once you can conquer them. So the fact that I got myself through that, understand how we can do that, and from there it was the logical step was use that to start helping other people to achieve the same. That's it in a nutshell.
And so you were not super confident when you started your speaking career.
Oh, no, quite the reverse. For the first 40 years or so of life, I was painfully shy. I was terrified of the thought of even connecting with people or speaking with strangers, let alone standing up on a stage in front of an audience, which was quite a problem given that when I was growing up, the biggest thing I wanted to be was a performer, an entertainer. But being terrified of the thought of being in front of people completely ruled that out. So I took the logical step. I went into a career in IT instead, where it's
where you don't have to talk to people.
Exactly. Exactly. So that kind of put the kibosh on those things for far too long until eventually it kind of all came to a head. I went to a Christmas party with a group of people who I thought I knew because I knew them from speaking online from behind the keyboard. I thought, how hard can it be to meet them in real life? And I got there and found out exactly how hard it was. To cut a long story short, I had a full panic attack. I locked myself in the toilets for about half an hour while I was having this panic attack. This was within maybe 10 minutes of arriving there. Once I'd calmed down enough, I fled. Didn't even stop to get my coat because that would have meant speaking to someone. I fled and didn't stop running until I was safely on the train. And this must have been a couple of miles. And you know me, Simone, I don't run. I avoid physical exertion. But such was the terror I had. I literally ran. All these stupid things going through my head. Oh, God, they're going to follow me. They're going to try and drag me back to the party. Of course, nobody's going to. But when you get in that sort of state, all these fears really, really build up. And it was at that point, as I was sat there, I was thinking to myself, look, you cannot go through life with this fear. If you carry on like this without doing something about it, what's your life going to be like in 5-10 years' time? And I was looking at it, I was thinking, well, it's going to suck even more than it does now. And that was the point I decided you have to do something. You have to do something now. If you're not going to do it now, you're never going to do it.
So what did you do to change it? What was the first catalyst for you to change this fear that you had?
For me, the catalyst was by chance, coincidence, whatever you want to call it. Somebody happened to be in town a short while later doing one of these weekend introduction breakthrough weekend things. And the main thing that they were selling on the back of it was NLP and hypnosis training. Now, hypnosis had been something, again, I was interested in as a young child, but I kind of put that all to one side when I was doing IT. So I went to that weekend seminar, really enjoyed the stuff, saw enough to think, this is working. This stuff actually works. Signed up for all the trainings that they had, fully immersed myself. Don't do things by heart. Fully immersed myself Became a master practitioner of NLP and hypnosis, thinking I was just going to use this to sort myself out. Because as you go through the courses, you do the work on each other. So thinking, great, get lots of therapy, plus I can learn this stuff. It's always good fun learning. And that's what I used to start me on the journey of completely conquering all those fears, and ended up helping other people do the same as a result.
And you've been speaking on stages, you've been on large stages, you've been speaking all over the world, and now also you are you also took stage hypnosis as well, doing stage hypnosis show. So talking about transformation and overcoming fears, you're definitely the living and breathing example of your message. So now let's go. There is actually, I've got another question. I've got another question for you, and it's something like, it's a good personal question. Is there something that influence that happened to you, or something that you have read, or a personal philosophy that influenced the way you live your life and or you run your business? Because I found that we all have different things that we are doing in life, or different passions that we have in life, and they also influence the way we run our life. I often give the example of basketball. It's a team sport, and influenced massive, and I've always loved team sports. And that influenced massively the way I run business, which is all about building a team, and also GTeX, which is about doing things together and growing together. And I didn't realize until recently that that was actually where it came from, and one of the things that influenced me. Do you have something similar in your life that influenced you to live or run your business in a certain way?
That's a really good question that I've never come across before. That is an interesting one. So it means I've got no prepared answer. So all I can do is go with go with intuition, the gut feel, the answer that comes up, which, as we all know, so often tends to be the right one. Yeah, and I think it's a blend of a couple of things. The major one, I think, is the career I had in IT. 20 years in IT. I'd always been into computers, even as a teen. I got the ZX81 once for Christmas, which will mean nothing to most people, but that was way back in 1981. It was a kit computer from Sinclair, the first true kit home computer you build up. Oh, that's great fun. So, excuse me, 20-year career in IT, where everything I did was, it was all logical, methodical, analytical. You see a problem, you don't just dive in and with the first thing that comes to mind and attempt to fix it. You see the problem, you analyze it, you understand it, you make sure you understand what's going on, which may not necessarily be what shows on the surface. There may be something deeper underneath that's going on. Figuring it all out, making sure you get all the information, coming up with a plan to resolve it, working through the plan, always checking as you go through to make sure, is this doing what I thought it would do? If it is, carry on. If not, stop, reassess the situation, adjust your course accordingly. And the more I look at it, the more I think that's really applies. Obviously, it applied with everything with IT. I think it applies with how I do my business, and it also applies with the approach I have when working with clients. It's not what I don't do is a client comes in, says, "I've got this problem. All right, hey, let's do this. Bam, done." Oh wait, that didn't do anything, because so often when someone comes with a problem, it's not the problem. It's something underneath, which is the real problem. But this other thing is kind of the symptoms. It's masking what is a more painful, deeper problem. And unless you analyze the whole situation, look at it from all angles, figure out exactly what's going on, understand what's going on, you haven't got much of a chance of addressing the situation.
That's when the inner geeks come out and say, I'm going to analyze the situation and find the root cause. And thank you for the answer. It's fascinating to see how our influence or past careers or our hobbies or interests, actually, they are influencing the way we see the world and the way we act and behave and the choices that we make. Because that's what I love about this industry of coaches, speakers, consultants, that everyone approaches their different problems or their methodologies using a different angle, so which often comes from these past backgrounds or experiences that we have. So thank you for sharing, Keith. So we have, as entrepreneurs, there are. We're going to focus mainly on the fear of public speaking in a moment, but this is not the only fear that we have. And a lot of time we can have other fears that are stopping us that we're not even aware of. So in your work with entrepreneurs, what have you identified to be the main fears, and how do they manifest?
Cool. So I think we can probably break it down into maybe 3 or 4 main fears that most, if not all, entrepreneurs experience at some point, at some level. Now, the thing with these fears, for some, it's really, really strong and almost stops them. In fact, for many entrepreneurs, it does stop them. For others, the fear can be there and they find a way to overcome it. So they kind of don't realize they had the fear because they found a way to overcome it. But when they take a step back and look, the fears were there. And I think a major one is imposter syndrome, which is the fear of, am I really good enough? Oh, what if I get caught out? What if I'm not as good as I think? What if people spot that I'm bluffing when you're not bluffing? You know your stuff. You've got a proven track record, but it's just so easy for those self-doubts to build up and build up. And so we're going, who am I to dare to step up? Who am I to say I am whatever it is that you do? That is a massive fear which holds so many back. Stops them from stepping forward because, if I step forward, I'll be exposed as a fraud. When really what happens, you step forward, you're now better able to help the people who really need your help. So we got that one. We got fears around things like picking up the phone. This is a major one for a lot of people. Picking up that phone and making those calls, whether it's making cold calls or whether it's making calls to people you already know, but you need to pick that call up and perhaps discuss a problem they have, or even just move them along in the sales process. So many people have such a problem, a fear around picking up the phone, or the fears of rejection, or what if it goes wrong? What will I say? That they end up not picking up the call, not making the call from week to week to week, and then wondering why nobody's calling them in the business. And I think another big one, which kind of relates to in a way to these, is fear of rejection. What are other people going to think of me? What if they don't like me? Well, so what if they don't like you? What about the ones who do like you? They're the ones to focus on. So I think that there's, apart from the one we're going to talk about in a moment around stage fright, I think those are the other 3 main things which really hold entrepreneurs back.
Brilliant. Okay, so now let's focus on stage fright. Where does stage fright comes from? Let's start from there.
Good place to start. So the thing with stage fright, there can be various different factors which can affect it. And this, again, goes back to that whole approach of analyze the whole situation rather than dive in. But as a general thing, people don't like feeling vulnerable. People don't like feeling that they're being judged. People kind of feel that, well, I'm putting myself out there as the expert in this topic. What if somebody else knows a bit more than me? I've got news for you. There is always going to be somebody who knows more than you about a particular thing. And you know more about the vast majority of the audience about the thing you're talking about. And that's the reason that they're there. But we have this, what if somebody asks me a question I don't know the answer to? Which is a great learning opportunity. What if I stumble on my words? What if I forget what I'm going to say? What if my trousers fall off in front of everyone? We got all these things which kind of really play on our mind and cause us to hide from being on the stage. And it's all those fears about being found out, which is not true, because the reason you're there is because you know your stuff. Fear, more practical fears. What if I forget what I'm going to say? Which can happen to anyone and everyone. And there are ways to overcome that. What if people ask me awkward questions? What if they laugh at me? What if they do? What if they don't? What if they like what you have to say? What if you say one thing which changes the whole life of somebody in the audience? Because that has happened. I'm sure all of us can think back to one example where somebody has stood up on stage and said something, and that sparked things in us, which has taken us in a whole new direction.
Yeah, it is fascinating. I remember when I had my first few speaking engagements, and luckily as a person, I'm just kind of a person that doesn't really care too much about what people think. I don't really care too much about what about putting myself out there in uncomfortable situation. Actually, that's where I thrive the most, in uncomfortable situation. I kind of get bored and lose interest if it's too easy. That's my kind of personality. And I found that when I did my first speaking engagement, I was terrified. I think I was 18, and or 17 or 18, and I had that's an interesting story. I was in love with my girlfriend at the time, and she was super smart at school. And at the time, I was like one of the worst in the school. And she got through the finals in the Youth European Parliament Commission. So we were then they were meeting with all the most clever students and the brightest students from all over Europe to deliberate on some laws that could be passed to the European Parliament. So it was a huge deal in our school, and only 3 people from the school were selected. I don't remember how I managed to get in, to sneak in there and be part of the team, even if I didn't do any qualification or qualifiers. I just talked myself into there so I could spend time with my girlfriend, and I was there. And I remember when they asked who wants. We created our plan, and they asked who wants to speak, who wants to talk about it. We look around, and everyone was literally academically successful. I was one of the worst in the school, and no one put their hands up. And just because I think I wanted to prove something to myself, I put my hand up and I said, I'm gonna do it. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing? And when the moment came, I was so nervous. My hands were sweating. I literally, my hands were sweating so much that the sweat passed through the freaking paper. That was horrible. I know it's a gross image. And I couldn't speak, and my mind went blank. And somehow I finished, and I ran off the stage. And that was my very first experience. And I was like, why is this so dreadful? Why is this so dreadful? Because in normal social situation, I could talk to people. I didn't have that problem. So what do you think, for people that now are approaching public speaking, and maybe they had their first few opportunities to speak, and whether they were confident in social situation or not confident in social situation, still this kind of body reaction happened and these feelings happen. So what can we do to overcome that? What are some of the things? What are some of the first steps that we can take?
Cool. I think a very important thing to appreciate, and it's not always easy to appreciate this in the moment, but it's something we can kind of appreciate beforehand, is that as with all skills, as with everything we do, it gets easier over time. So yeah, the first few times may well be scary, but you know what? The first time you walked the first few steps you took was scary. So scary, your parents had to really encourage you to make those steps. The first time we do anything, it's very scary because we got fear of the unknown. The more we do these things, the easier it's going to get. So don't let the fact that the first time or the second or the third time you do it is really scary, don't let that put you off. Know that, hey, this is cool. The fact I'm scared means I'm alive. It means I'm feeling emotions. This is good. It means I'm a real human. It also means I care about what I'm doing. Because if you didn't care about it, if you didn't care about getting the information across to the audience, if you didn't care about engaging with them and making sure they got what they came for, you ain't going to be nervous at all, because you're not going to give a damn about any of it. So if anything, the fact that you have these nerves is a good sign. It shows that this is something you're passionate about. It shows you care about doing a good job. Many things you can do. One very important thing, what a lot of people do is they just, right, it's time for me to speak, get up, go on. Bam, straight into it with no preparation, no warm-up or anything. I mean, if you're going to run a race, or if you're going to play a football match or a basketball match or anything, you do some physical warm-up first, yeah?
Yep.
You don't just jump straight out of bed into your basketball clothes and onto the court and then wonder why you end up pulling your muscle. You got to spend a little time to warm up. So if you're going to be speaking on stage, most of what you're doing is mental, so you need a bit of mental warm up. And that can be as simple as just finding a quiet space for the 5 minutes beforehand, and just don't focus on what you're going to be doing. Don't go over in your mind what you're going to be talking about, because by that point it's too late. Either it's there or it's not there. Those going over it and cramming it in those 5 minutes, the only thing it can do is make it worse. Oh my God, I don't know. Yeah. and it does the exact opposite of a warm-up. It's like a cool down, if anything. So kind of just take some deep breaths, sort of focus, take some slow, deep breaths, focus on just feeling calm and relaxed. Because so often when we go on stage, we're really nervous. Our heart's already pounding away, the sweat's pouring, as you said. So we go on stage in that state, and then the emotion heightens. So if your emotion is heightening from an already heightened, terrified place, there's only one way it's going to go, and that's worse. If you can bring yourself into a calmer place, so that when you go onto stage and the adrenaline kicks in and it brings you up, you're not going from terrified to super terrified. You're going from calm to a bit alert, maybe a little bit on edge, but you know what? We got this. We can do it. That free song of excitement. So that's a very important thing. And I've seen so many people who they're excellent at all the other steps. They miss that bit out and then wonder why the head kind of goes. It's because you're going in from an already heightened state, making it worse. So it's a calm, relax, and deep breaths just before going out. Even if it just means in the corridor or even in the bathroom just before going on, just take a few minutes to not even thinking about what you're going to be doing, but just calming and centering yourself.
So that's about calming and centering. Absolutely, is really, really, really important. I've got a lot of situations where I went in, I did exactly what you said at the beginning. I was stressed, and so I thought, oh well, this is a new talk. I'm not gonna remember it, so I'm gonna review the slides in the last 5 minutes. And the more I was reviewing, the more I was realizing I didn't know them, and then I was even more stressed, and I practically sucked in those kind of situations. So absolutely, taking that time is really important. What else we can do? What else can we do to become better and to overcome this fear?
Another great step is in the preparation stage. Now, what a lot of people do is they think, right, I'll write out my whole talk. I will then try and memorize the talk and then deliver my memorized speech, which is an absolutely awful thing to do for practically every way. Delivering a memorized talk isn't delivering a speech. That's acting. That's what actors do. And actors spend years, decades developing and perfecting the ability to deliver a memorized talk. And even then, very often, they will not deliver it exactly as they prepared it. That's why there's usually a prompter, or you have other people who are on stage, and if you do have that blank, which happens, they can kind of fill in and help you through it, or you can improvise and get through it. It doesn't work with Shakespeare, I have to say. People don't like it when you improv in Shakespeare.
No.
But they spend hours and countless tens or hundreds of hours rehearsing to deliver it. And you also have to develop the skills to be able to deliver it in such a way that people don't think, oh, there he is reciting a memorized talk. Because there's one thing reciting it, it's another thing actually delivering it.
Yeah.
Don't do that. It comes across really, really badly unless you've had so much practice that you're amazing at it. Also, you run the massive risk of forgetting where you are. And when you memorize it as you're basically memorizing it as a linear thread of a talk. If you forget one point, you've got no way to jump back into the next. You've lost your cue for the next bit and the next part. And that's where the mind goes blank. It's like, I forgot my line. I don't know what comes next. So don't attempt to memorize the entire talk. Yeah. You're going to deliver it awful. You'll probably forget. Plus, your timing is going to be out anyway. Yeah. Because no matter how well you practice timing it, when you get up there and the adrenaline kicks in, you'll end up maybe talking a bit faster, or you'll get people asking questions, which slows it up and throws your timing out. Why do people try and write speeches and deliver them like that? Because they want to make sure they remember everything that they're going to talk about.
Yeah.
But see, here's the thing. When you're, excuse me, when you're up there, the reason you're up there is because you know what you're talking about. You're the expert on that topic. Could you deliver everything you know about that topic in the time there? No, you couldn't. No, you could. It would take your entire lifetime to deliver everything you know. So you're always going to be missing some stuff out. People aren't going to be expecting everything. But what they're going to expect is that whatever you deliver makes sense to them, they can follow it, they can action it.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than script your entire talk, break it down into what are the key points I'm going to talk about.
Yeah.
The key points I'm going to mention. So you might have, say, 5 key points. I got my intro, I got point 1, point 2, point 3, and I got my summary conclusion. That's 5 things to remember, which is much, much easier. Now, delving into the psychology and the brain makeup of it, we tend to be able to remember 7 plus or minus 2 things at any one time.
Mm-hmm.
So 5 definitely falls within that. So that's something easy we can remember. We now have a structure. We know we could talk about those points because we've got so much stuff that we know.
Mm-hmm.
So we know, right, I'm going to start with my intro. I know kind of what I need to do about that. I know my 3 points. I can talk about those, and then I can wrap it all up.
Yeah.
We now have far less to remember. There's far less stress. It means suppose people start asking lots of questions around point 1, you think, wow, this is something they're really interested in. We can focus a bit more on this. And then we can just give a higher level overview of points 2 and 3 and say, if you want to know more, get in touch and we can discuss it. It gives you that flexibility to expand it, to contract it.
Absolutely. Now, I know that I want to wrap up with one point because now there are some people that where the fear of public speaking is less of a technical knowledge. Mm-hmm. But now we are talking more about deep-rooted emotions.
Yes.
And so when we are going into that realm, and that's where you are super expert in, is the normal like warm-up technique, know your points. They work up to a point. They are important, but then if the emotions they are triggered, they are so strong. Both being trained by the same speaker trainer, when the emotions are high, intelligence is low. And so, what are some of the techniques that you found they are more useful to get rid of this deep-rooted? Can be traumas, can be emotions, can be things that happened in the past that are affecting it. What kind of techniques do you use when you work with in those kind of people in this kind of environments?
Sure. So there are two components to this. There's the work you can do outside of the speaking environment, and there's the stuff you can do when you're actually there on stage at the time. Work that you do outside of it, there's lots of work you can do to address the emotions, find the underlying causes, change the emotion that's associated with those events. Lots of different modalities will do that. Hypnosis will do that. NLP will do that. That's the ones I specialize in. Other people use EFT, for example, EMDR. Well, whatever your preferred modality of dealing with these things.
Is there something that you found to be more effective than others, or is that techniques change from person to person?
That is a really good question. And the more I've looked at it, the more I've realized there's no one size fits all cure. Different things will work for different people, partly because the different techniques work in different ways, and partly because the different mindsets that the person has.
Okay.
And really, all of these tools, they're all just metaphors anyway. So there is no right. It's what resonates most with you as a person. That's what's going to get you the better results.
Thank you for clarifying.
No, my absolute pleasure. My absolute pleasure. Now, the biggest things that tend to hold us back or cause us fear when we're on stage is that people are going to judge me. What if people don't like me? Those tend to be the biggest ones. The reality is, around the liking bit, the reality is when you go on stage, if you're going to be speaking to more than, say, 20 people, there is a very high probability there will be one person in the audience who does not like you. And it's nothing personal. How can it be not personal? They don't like me. It's not personal. They've probably never met you before. They've just They don't even know why. They've just taken a dislike to you. And that's absolutely fine, because we do the same. I can guarantee you've been in groups of people, and you see someone, you just get that instant dislike of that person. You've no idea why. You can't rationalize it. It's just there's something you dislike about that person. And that's absolutely fine, because, see, here's the thing. Throughout the entire history of humanity, nobody has been universally loved. Nobody has. Not even you, Simone. I'm sorry to But, I mean, when you look at the major religious figures, even Christ, Buddha, the Prophet Muhammad, they all had their detractors. They all had people who disliked them, and that's putting it mildly in some cases.
Exactly.
It didn't stop them getting out there, presenting their message. You see, when there's somebody who dislikes you, you can either spend all your energy focusing all your time on that person, go, oh, please like me, please like me, which is going to make them like you even less, because now you're giving them reason to justify them not liking you, because you're just a whiny crybaby. That's how you come across. Mm-hmm. And B, you alienate everybody else, because you're focusing on that one person and alienating everyone else who's either likes you or is open to you. Acknowledge that not everyone's going to like you, and acknowledge that the majority of the room who are there, they're here to hear what you have to say. They either like you or they're open. They haven't made their mind up either way. Connect, focus your energy on them. Sometimes when I'm doing a talk, particularly when I'm doing a talk around these things, I even highlight that point. I'll say, look, hey, statistically speaking, there are 3 people in this audience who just do not like me. And that's absolutely cool. Sorry, you've got to sit through this, but hey, everyone else enjoys it. I'm sure you can put up with me for a short. Yeah, kind of acknowledge it, make a joke of it. Yeah. It's now in the open. There's no energetic hold there. But just, I mean, I know it's easy to say. It may be harder to do, but the more you do this, the more you practice it, the easier it becomes. So yeah, there probably will be people who dislike you. But that's the same in all walks of life. The important thing is there are people who like you, and they are the important ones. They're the ones you are there to serve.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Just having that in your mindset means it's no longer about you. It's about those other people who are looking to you for help.
Yeah. Yeah. So to sum up, guys, make sure that you do keep doing the work outside if you're really struggling with public speaking, because public speaking is, I think, the best skill, the most important skill that you can learn as a business owner, as an expert, because as an expert, you got to talk about your subject matter. That's why you're an expert, because you talk about it. Otherwise, if no one knows that you know, then you're not an expert in it. I mean, you can be just an expert in your head, but other people will not say that you are one, and that alone becoming an influencer or an authority in your field. So make sure that if you are resisting public speaking and you know that it's something you want to do, then really seek for some help. You know that you got to do something off stage, do your work on stage, because the good news is that, yes, at the beginning it will suck, it will be dreadful, it might be, but then the more you do it, the better it becomes. And suddenly you will find a way where you step on the stage and what you're feeling is excitement instead of fear. So that you're looking forward to speaking. So Keith, to wrap up, if someone wants to get a help in fears in general, but in particular in public speaking as well, where can they reach out to you?
You'll find me all over social media. Always look for the name Keith Blakemore-Noble, or go to my website, keithblakemore-noble.com. You'll find resources there. You'll find ways to get in touch. You'll also find information about the different ways in which I help people coaching, including overcoming stage fright.
Fantastic. So the links are going to be in the show notes. Make sure you connect with Keith at keithblakemore-noble.com or on his social media, Keith Blakemore-Noble. Keith, it's been an absolute pleasure to have this interview together. It was well overdue. It's been great catching up. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Simone.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching or listening. If you haven't subscribed yet to the show, make sure you subscribe right now so then you don't miss any other incredible episodes. We have always great guests talking about how you can become a better person in the expert field if you're an entrepreneur or business owner, or how you, as well you can grow your business with different strategies. So I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. And remember that together we grow exponentially. Ciao.